Hey everyone, this is Don Oswald with Eat Love Triathlon, and it's my pleasure to have Mark Allen, six-time Ironman World Champ, Mark Allen, with us today. Mark, I really appreciate your time and look forward to our chat today.
Hey, great to be back on, Don. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to touch a little bit on, I've been noticing been doing a lot of interviews with athletes about the race to St. George. And so I wanted to get your take on what your thoughts are on this season as far as having two Ironman World Championships and what your thoughts are around that.
Well, it's a dynamic like we've never had before. First of all,
Right.
the Ironman World Championship has never been held outside of the state of Hawaii. It was originally on Oahu, and then it got moved to the island of Hawaii. So to have the Ironman World Championship take place in St. George, Utah, it's a completely different beast. It's not tropical. It can be hot. It's desert. It's not, ocean and lava. It's red rock and a lot of climbing. Very, very different terrain profile from what you'll see in Kona. And it's the first official full Ironman distance world championship that will have taken place since 2019. So a lot of things are different. A different course, one that doesn't have a long history. So, as the athletes get prepared for it, it's not like they can kind of look back at 20 or 30 or 40 years of racing and figure out what dynamic really seems to work well. What do I need to work on? They know all of the little places and spots on the course where they have to be strong, where they can back off. St. George is something completely different. I don't know if any of the competitors who will be racing, at least for the professionals, have actually done an Ironman distance race in St. George. Some of them were in St. George in last September for the half Ironman distance 70.3 World Championships. So they have a taste of it. And all of those who have a good chance of doing well there, they are already in Utah training so that they get familiar with the environment, with the course, just everything. The second piece that's very, very different is that the top people haven't come together for a full distance race in 3 years, basically. 2019 in Kona was the last time that the Ironman World Championship took place. So even though the athletes have been racing the distance a little bit, very little in 2020, a little bit more in 2021, it's races where there's like, 2 or 3 real contenders as opposed to 50 men and 50 women or whatever the number is. And so it's also a different dynamic to hop into a race, get on the start line and look around and just go, holy guacamole, Batman, this is the real deal.
Right. Yeah.
And so then there's also just that anticipation because, it's just taken so many years to get to the point now where we finally have it. So that's May. So that will be the first big push for pretty much all of the top men and women who race that distance. And it's very difficult to be in absolute world-class shape in May and then think about redoing that and getting ready for Ironman in October, which the 2022 Ironman World Championship will take place on the Big Island in October. This is the 2021 Ironman World Championship taking place in May 2022, kind of like, Tokyo Olympics were a little bit later than the year it was supposed to be, but who's counting, right? So anyway, to have 2 really big full distance world championships like that, it's a challenge to hit those high of peaks twice in 1 year. So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you were have to do that, would you as a professional athlete, can you peak twice in a year with that distance apart?
I think you can. I kind of did that. Like I structured my years where my first races were in May and June, and usually that was the first really big peak, culminating in the Nice International Triathlon that was usually the first, second weekend in June. And so I would get ready, have a big race in Australia, leading up to it, another race in Paris, leading up to Nice, and then Nice. And so, I had to start my training in January to get in that kind of peak shape by late, mid-May, late May, early June. To do that for this, you'd have to actually kind of back it up even another month and maybe even start in December, which if you had a full season last year, wouldn't give you a lot of time to just really let down, recover, recharge the battery. So that in my mind is the biggest challenge. Yes, you can do 2 really big peaks in a year, but you have to be extra careful. And I think the catch for a lot of the athletes is that if they label themselves as more of a distance triathlete, Ironman 70.3, they're going to go to St. George, they're going to recover for a few weeks, and then they're going to think, okay, now I got to start building for Kona, when in reality, what they should really do is take June and July and do just very, very short distance training, do some speed work, train a real different part of their physiology than they have probably been working on for the last 5 months, 6 months. And then when you get to maybe August, then start to get ready for Kona. Otherwise, I can envision a lot of train wrecks going on out there.
It'll be interesting. I was there for the 70.3 Worlds, and it was a great course. It was a crazy day, as you well know. But yeah, it was a very challenging run and bike. It was a lot of fun. And I hope the plan is to try to requalify and go back this year. So we'll see. I think a lot of athletes have some unfinished business to take care of because of the weather. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And are you picking any kind of favorite? I know Jan and Lucy are out, but are you leaning one way or the other?
Yeah, unfortunately, Jan Frodeno out with an Achilles tear.
Yeah.
Lucy Charles Barkley out with some kind of a stress fracture in her hip. Those 2 were 2 of the favorites, men and women. So it kind of opens up at least one spot. And it also changes the dynamic a little bit, especially I would say for the women, because Lucy is usually the carrot hanging out in the front. And for Jan, he's often the one who is kind of right in the mix for a while, and then he starts to really push it in the second half of the bike ride. Those 2 are out. My favorites, I think, for the men, I'm going to put my money on Gustav Iden. He showed that he can race that course in St. George, winning 70.3 Worlds. It's a different course; it's twice the distance, so it's not exactly the same. But he's got to have confidence going in that he can nail a good one there. Second thing that he's not doing that pretty much everybody else did is he hasn't done one lead-up race. He's just training. And for most people, I'd say that's kind of nuts. You gotta race a little bit to get back in that race rhythm. However, I've seen some of the training that he's been doing, and he's not lacking anything. He's putting in some training days that are just monumental. So I think for the men, he's going to be the guy to beat. The guy that could beat him, I think, is Lionel Sanders. Actually, Lionel's changed coaches. He's being trained by Gustav's brother, and I think even though the results haven't shown, he did a 70.3 Oceanside just a couple of weeks ago. Had some issues on the bike that were out of his control, ended up having the fastest run of the day there, which I don't think Lionel Sanders has ever done that against other good runners. Alistair Brownlee was there, the winner, Jackson Landry, incredible runner. So anyway, Lionel could be the spoiler there. For the women, I have my money on Laura Philipp. She's done a number of Ironmans, starting I think in 2018 in Barcelona. She set the fastest ever first Ironman for a woman. She's run a 2:44 for her marathon. I think she did that in Austria a couple of years ago, last year maybe, whenever it was. Very, very fast. So she knows how to run. She is doing a lot of her training based on her menstrual cycle. So she has done a lot of research into it and found that in the first 2 weeks of her cycle, that's when she can do a lot of higher intensity work, a lot of strength work in the gym. And so she loads up on that. And then when she hits that second 2 weeks of the cycle, that anabolic phase in her body goes away, and she has to back everything down and just do longer, steady over distance work. Yeah. And so she's she's tuned into how her body works best and how she can train to maximize the benefit of each of those two different parts of her cycle. And the results are incredible. She had an incredible opening race at Ironman 70.3 in Dubai, beating Daniela Reef, and I think she's on top of it. She's my pick for the women.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be a great race to watch. Are you going to be there?
Oh yeah, wouldn't miss it.
Okay, good. I want to change gears a little bit. We work with athletes on their day-to-day nutrition. So we're finding that a lot of them, as they get ready for race season, as races come up and their training is ramping up, and their need for nutrition increases. And so a lot of them are finding that they don't want to do that because they're going to gain weight in when they increase their food intake or their calorie intake. So I wanted to get your opinion with your experience on, what do you tell your athletes when they're starting to increase their training load and they need to increase for energy, recovery, and just their mental health as well?
Yeah, the day-to-day nutrition, what you eat on a regular basis, it's very, very important to be consistent. There's no one secret superfood that's going to help you recover. There's no magic formula of exactly how many grams of carbohydrate, protein, fat that you're going to need. So the first thing I try to get my athletes to do is to tune into their body's ability to tell them what they need to eat. And the easiest way to do that is to cut out any kind of food that has concentrated food flavoring in it. So even if a food has natural food flavorings added, that is concentrated. And what it does is it hits that addictive part of your brain so that you're starting to eat from an addict's point of view as opposed to a nutritional point of view. And so, the easiest way to do that is just don't buy anything in a box. Don't buy anything that's in a wrapper. Even a lot of the nutritional bars and stuff, they have food additives in it that, and again, even if it says organic natural food flavorings added, that's high concentrated food that will hit the addictive part of your brain, and it will mask your body's ability to hear what you need to eat: carbohydrate, fat, protein, the ratio, the amount, or to even understand if maybe that hunger you have isn't that you're hungry, you're just dehydrated and you need to have more water. So that's the first step. Clean up your diet. Then once you have done that, then you start to eat based on what your body is needing. And a lot of times you might find actually that as an endurance athlete, even though you're eating everything healthy and it looks like it's got the right stuff and that it should satisfy you, you feel like your body's searching for something. And that goes back to exactly what you said. When you start to increase your volume and training, a lot of the micronutrients and things that your body needs go up much faster than your need for calories. One simple one are omega-3 fats. As your training increases, your need for those oils goes up very fast as opposed to your need for increased calories. And so there is almost no way to get a lot of the micronutrients that your body needs to make sure that your cells are healthy so that they can produce the right hormones, so that they can repair muscle, so that they can absorb a lot of the other stuff that you need. I personally have experimented with a lot of this over 40 years of athletics and training people, and that is one of the challenges, is that a lot of our foods today don't have the nutrient density that maybe they had 20, 30, 40 years ago. Right. Simple example, look at corn. Ancient corn was 30-35% protein. Our corn today, even if it's organic, is about 3 or 4%. So corn, along with a legume, beans, corn and beans used to be a really good source of protein. And if you go to a very traditional culture, which I've been to some, where they have old corn, it's not the modern corn, you have beans and tortillas, and you are full and you're satisfied because you have all the nutrients you need. You have the combination of a grain and a legume, so you have a complete protein. You've got the beans, so that's sort of like the salmon of the vegetable world. It's got some good oils in it for you. Our stuff doesn't have that. So what do? You have to do some kind of supplementation is probably the answer. I've been using products from a company recently called Tennant Products, Tennant, and there's a couple simple ones that I use that have completely transformed my body's ability to regenerate, to repair. They have one called Restore that I used prior to working out, and another one called Brain Food, which your brain, even though it's only 2 or 3% of your body weight, it uses about 20 or 30% of your total calories that you burn all day. And so your brain is just like a muscle. It needs to regenerate those neurotransmitters, and it needs to regenerate it needs its time to rest as well, to replenish, to repair, to rebuild. They've done studies where in endurance athletes where they show like you start slowing down and you can't make your muscles contract, but they can make your muscle contract electrically. It's just that your brain has run out of the stuff that enables it to work. And so feeding your brain is also very, very important. We could talk for 23 days on this topic, but the takeaway with it is, first and foremost, if you are increasing your training load and you are gaining weight that is not muscle, you're just eating too much, period. So then you have to ask yourself, why am I eating too much, period? It's probably because something is out of balance, and that natural intelligence inside your body is saying, I need more of whatever it is, protein, good oils, micronutrients, but I'm not getting it. So it's keeping me hungry to try to get enough in there, so then that baseline is satisfied. Generally, if you're getting a nice mix, a nice balance of food, you're not eating the high taste foods, you're going to be satisfied with the amount of calories that maintains your body weight as opposed to increasing it.
Yeah, and Kathleen and I we're not 100% plant-based, but we definitely are, I would say 95% there. And yeah, and I believe that you can, in my increasing my distance and my mileage and my hours of training, I definitely do eat a little bit more, but the food that we're eating does definitely satisfy, and it does fill me up, and I don't feel like that I'm losing or don't have energy to complete workouts, so it's really, I agree about the non-processed foods. I mean, that's not going to give you the nutrients you need to train well and to perform well. So,
yeah, and the biggest food additive, flavoring additive that messes up the whole system, sugar.
Yep. Yeah.
Added sugar just completely messes with your body's natural intelligence that enables you to tune into what your body needs. Years ago, my personal story of this is that in 1989, I had done Ironman 6 times, not one. And early in the summer, I had gone back out to Boulder, Colorado, where I did my summer training. I was winters in San Diego, summers in Boulder. And, every week I did a long bike ride on Saturdays. And I lived about 2 blocks away from a Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookie store. I don't know if you remember those, those nice, gooey, like delicious chocolate chip cookies.
Those are good.
And I loved them. And so, I'd finished my long bike ride, 5 hours, 6 hours, and I thought I deserve a reward. That was a lot of hard work, right? And, I ate a good meal, but then I needed my reward. And so I would walk down to Mrs. Fields, I'd get 6 cookies, and I figured, one a day, it's going to last me till next Saturday. Well, by the time I got home, there was maybe one or two
One or
cookies
two
left,
left,
and
yeah.
I couldn't let those two little cookies be there all by themselves. So, in a matter of an hour, I've had a half a dozen of these things.
Right.
And so, my toughest competitor, Dave Scott, he was really, really diligent with his diet. And he did a lot of plant-based nutrition, except for he had some dairy. Like he ate a lot of cottage cheese, which he would rinse to get rid of the fat, but the cottage cheese was high concentrated protein. So instead of eating meat, he would have cottage cheese to get the protein his body needed to repair and rebuild. So one day after gorging on my Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies, the light bulb went on. I was like, Dave Scott has won 6 Ironman titles and he's rinsing his cottage cheese. I have gone to Ironman 6 times and I have won 0, and I'm eating 6 Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies. Whereas,
Right.
I'm not living what I'm asking for here. And so I cut them out, and it literally took almost 6 weeks before I stopped craving those things. And finally the craving did disappear. And in place of that craving were these real subtle messages that my body was signaling me, saying, today you need more protein. Today you need more good oils. Eat some avocado, eat some nuts. Today you're just dehydrated. Drink some more water. And it just made me realize that our body is super intelligent if we unmask it and allow that intelligence to be heard.
I totally agree. I think that we have to be in tune with our body, on a day-to-day basis. And you've talked a lot about being in tune with your body when you're racing. And so it's about having that practice of daily, and it can be built. I mean, I believe that it can be built, that you can kind of get in tune with your body and know it. Like you said, it is very intelligent and it does tell us what it needs to perform well. So, yeah, yeah, no, we're on the same page with that. Definitely. I you know, wholly believe with a plant-based diet. I've definitely been able to recover better and feel better as an athlete and just perform better. I really believe that's
Yeah. So unmask that intelligence. Get rid of the junk. All of that junk is extra calories that will add weight without providing you with any of the nutrients you need to repair, replenish, rebuild.
And then I guess the last thing I wanted to discuss, and it kind of goes into tuning into our body, what you were talking about, is just being grateful as an athlete and being able to have that ability to just be thankful for where you are right now. You may not be athletically where you want to be, but just being able to be thankful and grateful. And, for me, it just, it's an energy thing. I mean, we are energy. And so when we feel and can express gratitude for things in our lives, I think that it really can open up things that we can be more in tune with our body and how it's responding or operating.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there's a couple things that have kind of come across my path over the years that just completely reaffirm that. It's being grateful isn't about saying, "Oh, life is rainbows and unicorns and everything's
Right.
wonderful." I mean, you have days where, let's say, your training goes really well and you're really psyched about it, and you have other days where you just feel like you fell apart and you didn't hold up your end of the bargain to what you wanted to do or felt like you could on that day. And same with races. But those are the moments where it begs you to assess, okay, what went wrong? What can I do better? How can I do this better? How can I honor my body more? Am I pushing myself too hard to the point where I'm overreaching to a point where I can't come back? And so it's part that gratitude is also kind of a different way of maybe saying, am I honoring my body with my effort and with my performance today? And a lot of days I would go out and train, and in the beginning I wasn't in the mood, and I was like, no, I think I guess I'll go out, and then 5 or 10 minutes into it, you're just like, wow, I feel great, and so sometimes it's in the beginning, you're not grateful. You're having a little resistance. You'd rather sit on the couch and be lazy, but then when you get outside and you start moving, you are grateful. You're like, oh, thank God I just got out the door, because now I'm in the rhythm and I'm feeling good. And you have this amazing workout and you come back and you go, look at that. If I had let that sort of lazier side of myself come, just give me one more excuse why I should just blow off that workout, I wouldn't have had this great experience. And again, they might not always be great experiences. And you might go outside and 10 minutes later, you're going, you know what, I really do need to cut this workout short. But an interesting research study was put in place years and years ago, and it kind of relates to gratitude in this sense. The study was trying to figure out how performances were between those who hit the top of their sport and those who were a little bit shy of it. And they found, and this was back in the days before we had Garmin's and everything that could measure every little thing going on in your body. So a lot of what people did was kind of like guesstimating. So, I did a 10-mile run today. Well, it was somewhere around 10, but you just said, okay, I'm probably averaging a certain pace and it took me this long, so I probably went 10 miles, right? And so what they did is they found that the majority of the people who were doing really well were those who were actually overestimating the amount of training that they were doing. So maybe I only ran 9 miles, but I told myself I ran 10, and I got home and I'm like, yes, I did a 10-miler. And those who were coming up short were the ones who got home and went, oh, gee, I wanted to run 10, but I'm sure I only ran 9, And so how are those two people absorbing that workout that they did? The one who's like, yeah, I ran 10 miles, but really it was only 9. And the other one, maybe they only ran, let's say 8, and they thought they only ran 8, but maybe they even ran 9. They were disappointed because they're like, oh, I wanted to go farther and I just didn't make it today. This person just absorbs everything that went on. They're grateful in the sense that they just felt good about what they did. And the other one felt like they got shortchanged. They fell short, and there's like a negativity around it. And they don't have the same absorption of the benefit of that training. So that really does sort of go to that thing of gratitude, like, hey, at least I got myself out there today. It was slow. I was kind of not in the mood, but at least I got out there. And that gratitude is really important. And it even extends to injuries. So for example, if you're going and you're training and you're kind of going, I don't know if I want to be doing this, you're whining, and this goes on for a few days or maybe a week or two, because you're not honoring your body, you're not getting enough rest, so you're having to motivate yourself. Then all of a sudden something gets injured, your knee starts hurting, or your ankle or your back, and you're like, oh dang, and you can't train. All of a sudden you're like, oh wait, no, actually I do want to train. I do want to train. And so, that sort of negativity can manifest as injury, as getting ill or sick. And then when you get that break that you probably should have taken by choice, you're forced to, all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, no, I do want to train. I like training. I want to be out there. And it takes a little while to undo that negativity, and then you're happy, you're out there again. And so that also, I think, attests to gratitude, and like I said, gratitude has many faces and many forms and many ways that it can be expressed or experienced. Like, you don't have to come home and go, that was awesome, if it was really lousy, but at least honor yourself and say, hey, I went out there and I did it. That is gratitude.
I totally agree. Yeah, one of my mentors, his phrase is, "We are where our attention is." So if your attention is to, like you said, be even grateful that you got outside instead of staying on the couch, that's what's going to come back to you. So, but if our attention is, and this is terrible, and this is, I'm whatever, fill in the blank as far as I'm having a bad day or this isn't fun or whatever, those things come back to us as well. So it's,
Mhm.
we are where our attention is for sure. So, but yeah, well, I really appreciate your time, Mark. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about or discuss today?
No, it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah,
My business partner and I, Scott Zagarino, we've been putting a lot of effort into the coaching to get our athletes ready for St. George. It'll be exciting. A lot of them have qualified and will be there racing. Um, so anyway, you can see all the stuff that I do at markallensports.com. And if people ever have questions for me there, for sure you can check it out. Check out Tenant products. I think they're great.
yeah, I will.
Some of the stuff that I'm doing now also is related to more just personal life coaching. We actually call it personal performance coaching, where basically, I just have a conversation with my clients and we sort of sift through and hit some topics that are important to them and work with that. I'm not a licensed therapist. I don't have that kind of background, but it's more just over your lifetime, if you put yourself in situations where you have had to face challenge, you will learn lessons that are valuable and solutions and ways of approaching things that are universal, regardless of the canvas that it's being painted on. And so that's what I try to bring to that for people also.
Well, yeah, and I think that you have a gift, and I think that people, just the experience that you have and the wisdom that you have. I mean, to share that gift with others is huge, and I think that you do a great job of that. And the other thing, you and Scott you're actually sponsoring or doing scholarships and management service for other athletes. How is that? What's that selection process?
That's something that Scott does. He's great with the business end of things, and I'll admit I'm not. That's why our partnership works great. I have my talents and skills and things that I feel like I'm good at, and also that I love doing. And he loves doing the business side of things. So if athletes are interested in some form of representation, for sure contact us, and we'll just get a little bit of history of what you've done in your racing. And it doesn't have to be triathlon, it can be any sport really. And then see if there's a match and some potential there for corporate partners to support your efforts as an athlete. I know, when I was competing, that was one of the biggest things that enabled me to be able to do what I did and to be the best that I could be, was just having that financial support from the different companies that I partnered with, and just gives you the time and the freedom to really just focus on becoming your best. And like I said, if you're going to be good at athletics, it's better to let somebody else take care of the business side of it so that you can just focus on what you do. And that's what Scott tries to help athletes do when he represents them. And he's done that over the years for many, many athletes.
Mark, I really appreciate your time, and it's always a pleasure to chat with you. And hopefully, we'll meet in person at some point. I wish I would have known that you were at St. George. Actually, I did, and I should have gone to the Zoot get together and had a chance to shake your hand, but I missed that one. So, but
Well, the next one, that get together with Zoot was just sort of a happenstance. I was with Bob Babbitt, who put together a magazine called Grip 6, and it's all of the articles that he actually wrote for my 6 victories throughout my career in Kona. And we were handing them out, and all of a sudden there's all these people showing up in Zoot outfits. And so one thing led to another, and we took some photos with them, and it was just really fun.
Well, Mark, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing what you come back with in St. George. It'll be fun.
Sounds great. Thanks, Don.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark.